Super Bowl, 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 Super Bowl.
The Green Bay Packers.
Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Season 3 of the Weekly Cheese, now broadcasting live from somewhere within the shadows of Lambeau Field. That is right. We are on the premises this year for Season 3. I could not be more pumped up. There are huge things coming here on the Weekly Cheese, and I mean, if you take a look at the vlog we posted just a couple days ago, we're here. We're in Green Bay. We are in Titletown. We are living amongst the Packers with one goal and one goal only, and that is to bring you, the cheeseheads out there, nothing but the best Packer content that we could put out, Green Bay content in general. It's going to be vlogs. It's going to be live from training camp coverage. We have a lot planned for the channel. For the Weekly Cheese, and we could not be more pumped up to get this first episode of the 2022 season underway. It's insane. I'm here with Chris, obviously. He is here with me in Titletown. And Chris, how are you feeling? We've been here for about a week now. Tomorrow will mark the 7th day. And just what are your overall feelings about being in Titletown?
It's unbelievable, dude. It's 5 for 5 great days here. I mean, over the weekend we had the soccer game, which was absolutely incredible. And just before, I'm sure we can touch on this now, you're going to see it in the vlog next week, but we have a fan who charged the soccer game to get, I don't even remember the guy's name that he wanted.
The reason we can't really remember his name is because there is a bit of an accent difference between us and him. He is a foreign exchange student from Chicago. In Chicago, from Kyrgyzstan.
Yes.
And he is just a huge soccer fan. He was in town for the game, and apparently he had a night he will never forget. He stormed the field after Man City won. I don't even know who won. I think Man City won.
Nothing. That one goal.
He was a big Man City fan, so he stormed the field and he tried to get a picture and close to his favorite players, and apparently he got hounded by 4 Green Bay police officers. They put him in the Brown County jail for the night.
Spent the night in the clink.
Yeah, he spent the night in Brown County, and he had to spend about $700 to get out. He asked to use our phone. He just came knocking on the door. We're getting ready to sit down to do this episode.
Yeah, imagine our mental state. We're preparing for this show. We're hanging out, having a good time, and we hear massive bangs on the door. I answer it, and he's asking for his bag that he left at the tailgate yesterday. And first of all, neither of us really participated in the tailgate outside of our house. We were more towards the stadium, so I was like, bruh, we don't have your bag, unfortunately, but you can ask any of our neighbors. I'm sure they might know. He goes and asks the neighbors, claims his bag, and what do we know? Comes right back.
Came right back to us. I guess he sensed we were friendly and eager to mingle with people in the area.
Well, he didn't have a phone. He had no money because he just spent it to get out of jail. And he just kept saying it was worth it. It was worth it. And now he has to get back to Chicago by morning.
Yeah, he has class in the morning.
Yeah. And there's just absolutely no way that he can get back to Chicago in the morning unless he Ubers, in which he doesn't have the money for. And I mean,
it was crazy. It was crazy that he knocked on the door, and that's what you get when you're within the shadows of Lambeau Field, especially after a crazy weekend like it was in these parts. But yeah, we're here. That's all I could really say about it. We're here, and it's time to get into the Packers season, what we're all waiting for. In just 3 days, we're recording this on Sunday. On Wednesday, training camp begins. We got the shareholders meeting to attend on Tuesday, and just so much to look forward to as we have a new look Packers team to rally behind and get excited for. But before we do that, just to briefly touch on the ending of last season and just everything that was. Clearly, since that point, it's been pretty much radio silence over here at the Weekly Cheese. Mainly because we had a lot going on here, clearly, with planning this move out here for the 2022 season. But let's just touch on the way that game ended. And that is with the special teams malfunction that
we all saw coming.
We all saw coming. And that's the point that I'm about to drive home here. And really my biggest takeaway from last season was the whole year, the special teams was clearly an issue. It was something we harped on here on this show. Every other Packers media outlet harped on it all year long, week in and week out. It was just horrible. I mean, and this started way, way back when Goot first took control over the reins. In 2018, he drafted J.K. Scott in the 5th round, followed by a Hunter Bradley in the 7th round, and they were really supposed to just come in and revolutionize the special teams, and for whatever reason, that just did not come to fruition. It didn't materialize for those two guys. And the writing was on the wall that this was going to be an issue 2 seasons ago, in 2020, when J.K. Scott, all of a sudden, in the middle of the year, started muffing kicks, and there was that weird little week there against Indianapolis where J.K. Scott was reported not going to be playing for personal reasons, so the Packers went and signed a punter off the street, and then just a few moments later, it was announced that J.K. Scott was, in fact, going to be playing, but he was just going to be driving himself to the game. And I just feel like ever since that point, the special teams has been on a slow decline. It was bad enough that ever since Micah Hyde departed from town, the Packers have had trouble filling in the gaps in their return game. And then when Kylan Hill got injured last year, that was just a big issue because he seemed to show some promise as a return man. But then just to have the year start out with the kicking unit the way it did, J.K. was muffing the kicks, the punts left and right. Mason was missing some field goals.
Unlike him. Absolutely unlike him.
Yeah, after being on the most hot streak of his career with the most consecutive makes in a row that he ever had, he missed one, and then it just all seemed to unravel shortly thereafter. Boho came into town. J.K. Scott got released, and they cut Hunter Bradley, and Steven Wirtle, who was touted to be athletic, came in and took over the long snap position, and that's when we should have really known this was all going downhill. It didn't get better from that point on.
If anything, it stayed the same.
It stayed the same. And
it was a revolving door of mediocrity back there.
I agree, and I know that especially in that divisional round game, after Mason Crosby missed that field goal early on, in every single special teams play, I was tight. Like, I was really nervous every single special teams play. And then that final one, when Wirtle just got absolutely manhandled and the punt got blocked and got shot up 300 feet in the air, I just felt my soul leave my body and
right with the ball
stomped
as the ball
on.
Shot up, so did your soul.
And it sickened me to my core, but only because that feeling of disbelief, shock, disgust, anger, sadness, grief, like every emotion that one could possibly feel besides the positive ones, we all feel in those moments, and it just felt all too familiar at that point.
Right.
Like, I walked away from that, it felt all too familiar.
Here we go again, yeah.
We should have known it was going to happen, and you could probably tell if you go back and listen to the post game after that. It was just misery. There was no spark there on that episode, and after a long off season of radio silence here at the Weekly Cheese, we could have been discouraged entirely, but no, we said, the F with that. Let's pack the car, and head to Titletown and just try to do whatever we can to bring just that, whatever it is, whatever we could possibly offer to this place.
The vibes, bro.
Just the vibes, and let's go be there for the Lombardi ceremony.
Which is what we did.
Which is why
And we're
here.
here.
And we're here to bring the content. So it's a new year. Let's not harp on the special teams conundrums of the past, because as you will all know, and as we'll get into shortly here, it has been revamped.
In a way we could only have dreamed of, Joe.
Seriously, in a way that we could only have dreamed of. And just let's look ahead. Talk about the offseason. Talk about the changes that have occurred to this Packers team, roster, everything. And really just get excited for this upcoming season, because this is a new look Green Bay Packer team. It is Goot really, what I'll say is Goot outdid himself, in my opinion. And I am on record. There's hours of me talking on this channel about my disdain and disgust
And your skepticism.
and my skepticism of everything Brian Gutekunst has done. And in my humble opinion, whatever it means to the cheeseheads of the world out there, I do feel as if Brian Gutekunst deserves a round of applause for how he has this team positioned and looking coming into this season.
He even has the morale high. I feel as if the morale in the
morale-
locker room is high.
The morale is high, despite some devastating off-season
Yes,
changes.
obviously, but
But the
Aaron's
morale's
been
high.
Aaron's been public about it.
Oh, yeah.
He hasn't seemed as flustered as seasons past coming into the season.
Well, I would never say Aaron Rodgers seemed flustered coming into seasons. Yeah, he's been cool and collected each and every single time that guy comes into the year. Everyone else is flustered around him. The media
Okay.
is flustered around him, but Aaron Rodgers is not flustered, and that's exactly why none of us should be. But it is exciting to see a little bit of a new look here, and just some new guys to root for, youth, experience, some familiar, beloved figures that we brought back and were able to retain, some really hopeful and promising young rookies. It's going to be a crazy season. So without further ado, let's kick this 2022 season off and just get into everything that has transpired. And obviously, the first thing that must be talked about when getting into the offseason changes is clearly the first two things that were on the to-do list once the season ended. The season came to a close, and absolutely nothing could proceed until two things were worked out, and that is obviously addressing the contracts of Aaron Rodgers and Devonte Adams. And clearly everyone knows how it unfolded, but let's just do a little timeline there. I mean, on March 8th, the team franchised Devonte Adams, and that was the moment that we should have really all known that Devonte Adams was not going to be a Green Bay Packer anymore. He clearly did not want to play on the franchise tag, and if you listen to him speak about it, not just during the season when asked about contract negotiations, but last season and coming into the season this time last year, when talking about it, it was very obvious he had no intentions of playing on a franchise tag, that he was the best receiver
He
in the
wanted to
league,
be the guy.
and he was going to be paid accordingly. So just the fact that they did franchise him should have been a little bit of a red flag that maybe the writing was not on the wall. Just a handful of days later, Devonte Adams on March 14th announced that he's refusing to play on the franchise tag. And the very next day, on the 15th of March, it was announced that Aaron Rodgers was just signed a 3-year, $150 million contract extension. And just 3 days later, on the 18th, Devonte Adams was traded to Las Vegas for a first and second round pick. He was given that massive 5-year, $141 million contract. And that is a contract that Goot supposedly topped he gave him a better offer, and Devonte Adams still apparently wanted to go to
Play
Las
with Derek
Vegas
Carr.
and play with Derek Carr and move his life. But I think the writing was on the wall at the start of this past season, at the start of last season, this time last year. Looking back on it, just watching all of Devontae's pressers, even when he showed up to OTAs when there was speculation that he wouldn't, it was just clear that there was a different vibe in the air when Devonte was speaking.
Yeah.
Like he knew it was going to be his last time doing the whole Packers media room and being with those select individuals. And, he wanted to move on with his career. He wanted the new chapter of his life to begin. And for that, really, no one could be mad at him. Devonte Adams gave us everything he had on and off the field for 8 amazing years. And if you ask me, he ended his career with the Packers as the greatest receiver in the history of the franchise. I know people say Sterling Sharp is, and I get that argument, and I'll listen to it, and I won't even disagree. But in my opinion, Devonte Adams is the greatest receiver that the Packers have ever had, and I think he is going to go down as the best of his generation. Devonte Adams
Absolutely.
is a special wide receiver. And just before we put the DA talk, we got the Devonte Adams signed mini helmet right here on display. That's not going anywhere. My jerseys will be worn proud for the rest of time. He will be in the Hall of Fame as a Packer, no question about it. But before we put all the Devonte slurping that goes on this channel behind us, let's just, for one last time, go down a list and read out Devonte Adams' accolades and give him the respect he deserves as the greatest receiver in Packers history. Devonte Adams is number 2 in overall receptions with 669, number 2 in touchdowns with 73, and 4th overall in yards with 8,121. He is the only player in NFL history with 115-plus catches, 1,350-plus receiving yards, and 11-plus receiving touchdowns in back-to-back seasons. He is the first player in team history to have 7-plus 100-yard games twice in his career. He is one of only 3 NFL players in history with 650-plus catches, 8,000 yards, and 70 touchdowns in their first 8 seasons. Devonte Adams has the most games in NFL history with 10-plus catches, 100-plus receiving yards, and multiple touchdown catches with 8. He has 12 career games with 10-plus receptions, 100-plus yards, and a touchdown, which ties him for most in NFL history. And he and Aaron Rodgers connected on 68 touchdowns, which makes them the most productive touchdown combo in Packers history. The list goes on and on. The guy is unbelievable. And even when his stats drop next season by way of playing with Derek Carr, I don't want to hear anything about it. Devonte Adams is the best receiver in the National Football League. So thank you for 8 special seasons, Devonte. And if all goes according to both of our plans, I'll see you in the Super Bowl this year, man. I'll see you there. Thank you. Now with that out of the way, no more Devonte talk unless it is in bitter reminiscence. Let's get into the NFL draft because clearly with Devonte out of town and Aaron staying for the rest of his career, it was important to everyone out there that the Packers address the wide receiver position clearly because now Devonte Adams out of town and we don't have the luxury of not drafting a legit wide receiver.
All eyes were on Goot this year. I mean,
all eyes were
on Goot this year.
And rightfully so, because he, for a second there, dug himself into a deep.
Well, let's not talk about
hole.
last year.
Well,
and with this being such
thing.
an important draft,
That's what I'm saying. He has dug himself into a hole, and all eyes were on him to see what he was going to do. And the draft goes as followed. Mind you, we now have 2 firsts and 2 seconds. So that is a huge benefit and even more of a reason to keep your eyes firmly glued on Brian Gutekunst. But in round 1, pick number 22, Quay Walker, linebacker out of the University of Georgia. Pick number 28, Devonte Wyatt, defensive lineman out of the University of Georgia. Then, in round 2, the Packers traded up with the Vikings, and they drafted Christian Watson, wide receiver from North Dakota State University. Round 3, they took Sean Ryan, an O-lineman from UCLA. Round 4, Romeo Doubs, a wide receiver from Nevada. Also in round 4, they drafted Zach Tom, an offensive lineman from Wake Forest. Round 5, Kingsley Enegabare, an outside linebacker, edge rusher from University of South Carolina. And then in round 7, the Packers had 4 picks, and they took Tariq Carpenter, inside linebacker / really a safety, Georgia Tech. Jonathan Ford, a defensive tackle from Miami. Rasheed Walker, an offensive tackle from Penn State. And Samori Toure, a wide receiver from the University of Nebraska. And at first glance, I would say that this was one of Brian Gutekunst's most impressive draft classes. He really seems to be getting the hang of the whole process here. And there's good reason to feel optimistic about nearly every single pick that the Packers had this season.
Yeah, he shored up one of the
draft.
best defenses in football and then added what should be a lethal weapon on offense. So.
Well, exactly. After this draft, I mean, although the team is clearly different, should be nothing but optimism coming into camp. And this new Packers team looks like it could really do some damage. And just like you said, Chris, right there, it starts with the fact that their defense just got totally fortified through this draft.
It's deep.
For the first time in a very long time, it is the Packers offense that has all the question marks surrounding it. And the defense has nothing but pressure and expectation on its shoulders. And that's refreshing to me. That is as good a news
because you have Aaron Rodgers
as
at
we
the
could
wheel.
possibly
Yeah,
have as
exactly.
Packer fans, because really it has been so long since that has been the case. Last year, the first season under defensive coordinator Joe Barry, it's safe to say it was a successful season for him. The defense was a solid unit. They played good football all season long, and they improved gradually throughout the year, just every great defense does. They were getting better and better week
every
in
single.
and week
I was
out.
excited to watch the defense relative to the offense last year.
And they did that despite injuries all over the
season.
field. The defense
All
was riddled
season.
with injuries, and despite that, by the end of the year, they were one of the best defenses in the league, with stars emerging all over the place. Like Rashawn Gary took a huge jump last season. He was a stud. Devondre Campbell, I mean, all-pro. Rasul
He
Douglas.
played himself into that nice contract.
Eric Stokes, like stars were popping up left and right with the absence of Jair Alexander and with Zadarius Smith, who this past offseason unfortunately showed his true colors after holding out all season, signing with the Vikings. Puh. Now he is public enemy number 1 around these parts, if you're asking this guy. It is a shame to see him take a heel turn like that, but no surprise after he held out all season long. And despite him not being there and trying to prove a point, like, look how much this defense needs me, no. Rashawn Gary said, I got this. No need to fear. Devondre Campbell, again, like so many guys stepped up with major contributors being out for significant portions of the year, if not all year. So the fact that Goot has been able to just go and draft like he did and fortify this defense and bring in these young talents, this Packers defense has true top 5 potential.
Absolutely, 100%.
And I get chills thinking about it. And I know what everyone's saying. The general consensus around the draft was that the Packers did a horrible job, and how could Brian Gutekunst not draft a wide receiver in the first round? And oh my God, they went defense. Like what? How did they not move up? Yada yada yada. Listen, you don't think if he could have moved up and did something that he felt worthwhile, he would have? He did for Jordan Love. The guy's not afraid to go move up. We know that about him. And quite frankly, if you ask me, Treylon Burks was where the first-round receivers ended. That is the guy that everyone had penciled in getting drafted to the Packers, right there where they were. And he got picked up. Tennessee traded A.J. Brown
in a wild trade. I mean,
a wild trade, but I don't think A.J. Brown wanted to be in Tennessee.
You don't think so?
And might as well just go trade A.J. Brown for A.J. Brown. That's
exactly.
Realistically, what they did. Treylon Burks would have been great to have in town. But that's where the first-round receivers ended. It was obvious. Clearly, the whole league knew Watson wasn't going till the second round. Or else the Packers probably would have taken him in the first round somewhere. But Goot stuck to his gut. He felt he could get the next best guy in the second round, and he went and got arguably the two most productive players on the national championship defense.
Yes.
The Georgia defense was filled with talent, 11 deep. There was basically 11 pros on that defense, and it is a fair argument to make that the two guys we got in town, Quay Walker and Devonte Wyatt, they were the two best guys on that defensive unit, playing perhaps the two most important positions on a defensive unit. So let's just talk about them, because I was sick when I saw all the hate going on about these picks and people saying that Goot messed up, because reality check, people, the big issue was depth. Okay? That was the big issue with the Packers defense last year. There's only so much you could do when Lancaster and Garvin are coming in, and we needed more dogs. Look at the 49ers.
Yeah, they could just swap them in and out.
God forbid they have to come to Lambeau again and it's snowing and we have to rely on special teams. No, we need dogs. We can't rely on three guys to be our entire pass rush. No. So these picks are great. The 22 pick, Quay Walker, inside linebacker, but really just linebacker extraordinaire.
Physical specimen.
Total physical specimen. 6'4", 241 pounds, and he had a relative athletic score of a 9.63. He was just, and I guess relative athletic score is just basically all the combine drills tallied up and given a total athleticism score, as I understand it. His stats in the 2021 college season: played 13 games, 65 total tackles, 5.5 tackles for a loss, a sack and a half, 3 passes defended, fumble recovery. And listen, he plays in the SEC. He was on a defense loaded with pros. All of the stats of guys like that are a little skewed. I mean, it would have been nice to see maybe a sack or two more coming from him, but he's an inside linebacker. And
Devondre Wyatt was maybe taking some away.
Exactly. So I try not to even look at sack totals when I'm looking at the guys Packers draft, because it's all relative. Look at Rashawn Gary and Michigan. One of the biggest critiques of his game was his lack of sack production. That was a huge knock on him, and the sole reason why after the Packers picked him, the Packers received a C+ grade on that pick, and look who's laughing now. So sack totals are just BS. The truth of the matter is, he was the first inside linebacker taken off the board, and for very good reason. Quay Walker is big, Quay Walker is strong, Quay Walker is fast, and Quay Walker is versatile. He is going to be an immediate impact performer on this defensive unit, lining up alongside first-team All-Pro, 9-year gristled veteran Devondre Campbell. I don't know if he's a 9-year veteran. That was a total shot in the dark. But point being, he's going to be lined up right alongside first-team All-Pro Devondre Campbell, who, mind you, just signed a 5-year, $50 million contract of his own. And in just a matter of one season, the Packers went from having perhaps the most laughable interior linebacking unit to one of the most feared interior linebacking unit. Yeah, Quay Walker needs to pan out, but at a first glance, this guy is a surefire hit. He seems to be a stud, and just listening to the way he talks and just listening to his pressers, he seems to be motivated and serious about his business. So he looks the part, and I believe he is going to fill the part perfectly. And on top of his ability to line up inside right there next to Devondre and stop the run and get sideline to sideline in the blink of an eye, he is also versatile enough to line up on the outside and attack from the edge. We've seen him do it a bunch in college. He was coming off the edge quite a bit. And, I mean, this past season, the Green Bay Packers pass rush was pretty phenomenal. They had 39 sacks.
A ton of pressures. And that was coming from a unit that relied on, no offense to these guys, but John Garvin and Tipa Gallier to come in and spell Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith for pretty much 15 to 20 snaps a game. And during those important downs, there was minimal pass rush whatsoever. There was no production coming from the secondary options there. It was all Preston and Rashawn. For a second there, Whitney Merciless came in and helped. And then clearly when Za'Darius, when the playoffs came and he decided to grace us with his presence, he did what he does. Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
Besides that, it was Preston and Rashawn responsible for all of the edge pressure. And Quay Walker's going to be able to come in and alleviate some of that, as well as the 5th-round draft pick. Let's not overlook Kingsley Enagbare. That people are calling him the steal of the entire draft. The guy, talk about a physical specimen. You think Quay Walker is big and impressive? Kingsley Enagbare is 6'4", 258. And last year he had 44 total tackles, 7 for a loss, and 4.5 sacks. He moves fast, and again, I think of him as a immediate upgrade from Garvin and Tipa Gallier.
Absolutely.
No knock on those guys. They play hard, but Kingsley Enagbare is going to be getting some burn, and I'm hoping he pans out and could add just the depth that it appears he's going to, because if that is the case, it'll allow Preston and Rashawn to not really have to worry about reserving any of their stamina. It will allow them to
just go
full
crazy.
throttle whenever they're out there, because they know they're going to be given a break by someone who's going to come in and make a play.
Exactly.
Not someone who's going to just
Hold
totally
the
get
line, yeah.
halted at the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, just stood up. And that's what was happening last season. There were about 20 plays a game where opposing teams knew that they could throw the ball.
Absolutely.
Like, they knew they could throw the ball.
Yeah.
And we knew that we could get thrown on when Preston and Rashawn were not out there. It was too much of a risk. And again, adding to the depth, Quay Walker and Kingsley Enagbare are going to be out there, and it's going to be exciting. And then to address the other luxury item that Good went and got us in the first round, Devonte Wyatt, the nose tackle from University of Georgia, 6'3", 304 pounds, with a relative athletic score of 9.6 out of 10. The guy is a physical specimen. And in his 13 games last season, 39 total tackles, 7 for a loss, 2.5 sacks. And really, when he wasn't finishing the play, he was blowing up the opposing team's offensive lineman and getting to that backfield.
If he
out
wasn't
with will.
finishing the play, it was because he chose to let the other
Yeah.
person finish the play on that possession.
Yeah, and there's major hype surrounding that guy, Jordan Davis, who went to the Eagles, number 99 from Georgia's defensive line. And admittedly, when I first saw him, I'll never forget, Chris and I, we were sitting there watching a Georgia game, at the
Yeah.
start of last summer. Like, it was early, and we're watching, and I'm like, oh my God, 9'9" is big. Like, that guy's big. And turned out he was the fastest big man of all time, or
Yeah.
whatever happened in the combine. So I get why he got drafted, but Chris was saying the whole time, even when I was talking about 99, that if you really
Yes.
watch that tape, the true difference maker on that
Devonte
D-line was
Wyatt, baby.
9'5".
That's the guy I wanted.
Was
I wanted this
9'5".
guy badly.
He did. Chris
he was a
wanted him.
clear difference maker. If
Yeah.
you just go back and watch any Georgia game last year, he was the guy that was obviously making the difference on that line.
And you think we're making that up? Go look for yourself. It is the truth. He was the man, and he is a high motor big man. He is versatile, quick on his feet, got everything you want.
Takes up a ton of room.
Takes up a ton of room. And put him out there right alongside Kenny Clark. Oh, that interior of that Packers defensive line is that much more ferocious when getting after quarterbacks. And if you think about it, that was on Goot's mind this past offseason, because he went out and drafted Devonte Wyatt. In free agency, he brought in veteran defensive lineman Jaron Reed from Seattle, who has 225 career tackles and 24.5 career sacks, which includes a 10.5 sack year just in 2018, not too long ago.
Yeah.
So even if he has anything left in the tank, that's added depth. They drafted Jonathan Ford out of Miami late in this past draft. He's 6'5", 340, just a behemoth of a man. They have TJ Slayton coming back for his second year.
He looks good.
Is looking trim and ready to go.
He looks good.
Reports are similar this year about TJ Slayton as they were Preston coming into last season, about them being in much better shape, visibly better shape. So that's great news. And really, it is great. The Packers defense is stacked now, and the front seven is as deep as I could remember it being in the last decade. Maybe since that Super Bowl team with Big Bad Howard Green coming in mid-year and bolstering that line. But when you consider the last 3 seasons, all of us were subject, and just the Packers in general were one injury away from having Tyler Lancaster out there for 30 snaps. Seriously, that was the reality that we faced at both of the positions that were addressed in the first round. The Packers were always one injury away from Ty Summers playing major minutes, and we were always one injury away from our beloved Tyler Lancaster, who's unfortunately not on the roster anymore, from coming in and playing major time. Dean Lowry, I didn't even bring up now. He's still there, and he's still going to be Dean Lowry, but he might be a little buried here on this depth chart, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yes.
That is exactly what the Packers needed, and Goot went out and did it, and good on Goot for doing it. I couldn't be more pumped. The thing I'm looking forward to most this season is watching this Packers front seven go to work. It's going to be a thing of beauty with Kenny and Devante and Quay Walker, Preston, Rashawn, Devonte.
We're going to have to make some predictions on rush yards allowed, pass attempts like denied, all these types of stats. Advanced analytics here.
And we see how they're looking on the day-to-day here coming up this week. We will definitely get all of that out there for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
That is going to be amazing. And, now let's just round out the defense quick, talk about the secondary, because there was some movement in the secondary, nothing too crazy.
I would call it more shoring up rather than movement.
We shored it up. The Packers shored up their secondary and kept the boys at home. This offseason, they had to get the first thing out of the way, which was extending Jair Alexander, not going into this season knowing he's going to be a free agent. Just get it out of the way. If you learned anything from what's gone on with Devonte, is you can't even risk it. Just get it out of the way. And Jair Alexander, who's clearly the best corner in the game, signed a 4-year, $84 million contract extension, and he will definitely be looking to remind the entire NFL exactly why he got that money after missing the majority of last season due to injury. And if we're being honest with ourselves, now very far removed from last season, Jair Alexander getting hurt was the best thing that could have happened to this year's team.
Yes.
To this year's team. Because when he went down, the entire season could have been ruined. Literally, last year when Jair went down, the season could have been over. the Packers could have been miserable. At that point in time, Kevin King was still the number 2 corner on the roster. Eric Stokes was still coming along a little slowly, and the Packers really needed someone to step up and go get someone off the street to come in and make a difference if they had any chance of fielding a competent defense. We were about to be the 2016 Packers with Gunter out there, you know what I mean? Like, it was about to be miserable for the entire season if something didn't just happen miraculously. And that's exactly what happened.
Boy, did it.
A miracle happened. And we'll start,
One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah, and before we get into the true miracle that was last season, Eric Stokes, he had to step up first and foremost. He was a first-round pick. He was our rookie, and it might have been a little sooner than planned, but he needed to get out there, and he needed to start producing. And he played pretty damn good while lining up from some of the top wide receivers in the league week in and week out. He started 14 games last season, allowed just a 49% completion rate on 97 targets, and an average passer rating of just 71, which is well below the league average. So, as a rookie, I would say he was one of the top 3 rookie corners in the league last year. If not the best. So, that was a great sign and only helps us coming into this year. That experience that he gained playing meaningful time,
against top
legit
guys,
wide receivers, while being on the best team in the league record-wise, like, that's experience that you don't get anywhere else other than Green Bay. And he capitalized on his opportunity without question. But in what was perhaps the biggest story of the entire season last year, Rasul Douglas signed with the Packers in early October after starting the year on the Cardinals practice squad, and he took over. He became a bona fide star in the Packers secondary. He finished the year with 13 passes defended, 5 interceptions.
Big interceptions.
Big-time interceptions.
Big time interceptions.
2 of which were pick sixes. And again, he just saved the day on numerous occasions, whether it be with the interception at the end of the game against the Browns on Christmas Day, or against Arizona in his first start where he beat his former team by picking off Kyler Murray at the very end of the game, or the pick six. He was a difference maker. He was electrifying. And in just 3 months, Rasul Douglas went from the practice squad to the Pro Bowl, earning himself a 3-year, $21 million contract from the Green Bay Packers, and, most importantly, the Apostle Award for saving our ass last year during our cheesy award ceremony. And they're all back in town. Stokes, Rasul Douglas, and Jair Alexander will be the
big three, baby.
Corners.
The Holy Trinity, as I'll probably refer to
the
them
Holy
as.
Trinity.
Yes.
That's a perfect way to refer to them as coming into this season. And behind them, clearly got Adrian Amos, Darnell Savage. They're both returning. Couldn't be more pumped. And hey, mark my words, if Adrian Amos continues to play just how he always does, he is, in my opinion, the most consistent safety in the league. He will receive another extension. I mean, that guy, he was phenomenal last season. And I think Darnell Savage is going to have a big leap.
He needs to
this
have
year.
a
I think he is going to have a big leap. As far as depth behind those two guys, last year, really, the last guy there was Henry Black. That has been addressed, drafting Tariq Carpenter, also signing Keyshawn Nixon from Vegas. So it's a little more spruced up back there. But really, the Packers have 5 studly defensive backs to play back there right behind a ferocious and deep front seven.
A lot of lobs being thrown in the air in a hurry.
Yeah, they
in a
are
hurry.
Loaded with talent, athleticism, and it's just the perfect combination of familiar faces and experience and youth.
And rejuvenation,
determination
yes.
And raw talent. So the expectations should certainly be high for this Packers defense. And truly, the sky is the limit for them as they get ready to go into year 2 under Coach Barry. And man, let's go. On the flip side, with the departure of Devonte Adams and the uncertainty of the Packers' offensive line situation this season, the Packers' offense has nothing but question marks and doubters for what feels like truly the first time since Aaron Rodgers' rookie year.
It's honestly, in a weird way, it's exciting.
It's
exciting. Yes.
It's truly exciting. Because I don't know what it feels like to have people doubting the Packers' offense with Aaron Rodgers under center. It's never happened before, besides when he first got the job and he took over the starting position. But outside of that, there has never been any concern for the offensive functioning. There's been drama with Aaron coming back. They've really ran with that story, but never drama about how the Packers' offense is going to look. They're going to look great.
It's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, they're going to look great. But not this year. It's just crazy. And I swear it's the first time in Aaron's career that it's been quite this bad. And a lot of it is because not only did Devonte Adams leave, but so did Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Unfortunately, MVS is now with the Chiefs. Talk about a man who could thank Aaron Rodgers for everything. MVS, but hopefully he could stick there in Kansas City and they don't get sick and tired of
He's
his
their new
drops
burner.
and
I think
his
he's the one that's
hamstring
replacing
tweaks.
Tariq Hill's speed.
Well, hopefully he doesn't keep tweaking his hammy or drop wide open touchdown passes, but whatever. I liked MVS. I'm happy he was here, and thanks for everything you've done as well, MVS. And yes, I understand there are these concerns, and we will get into them, and we will address these concerns that people are having surrounding the Packers offense. But before we do that, there are two areas of this Packers offense that there are no need to concern. There's no worry whatsoever. We could rest our heads peacefully at night knowing that these two primary and important positions are in good hands. And the first one's obviously the quarterback situation. Aaron Rodgers is now officially in town until he decides to retire. That's really the greatest news I could have personally received this offseason after what feels like an eternity of stress and misery harping on that one very point. And the fact that Aaron is in town until he wants to not be makes me a very happy camper. And as long as he is the quarterback, there is nothing to fear as far as the quarterback position goes. And the other one being the running back room. Last year, in his second season, A.J. Dillon basically split snaps right down the middle with Aaron Jones. They split touches, and it amounted in basically identical stats. If you look at their stats from last year, they are just identical.
And they get in such different ways, too.
Such different ways. Aaron Jones, 223 touches, 1,190 yards, and 10 touchdowns. A.J. Dillon, 221 touches, 1,116 yards, and 7 touchdowns. A few touches, a few yards, a few touchdowns difference between the two gentlemen. They were a true 1-2 punch, thunder and lightning, and they're only going to continue that, if not become even more impressive as a duo now that A.J. Dillon is entering his prime. He is going into his third season, and he is just, I think he is going to be the man this season. And they're going to have to carry the brunt of the workload, especially early on this season, as Aaron is getting acclimated with all his new and rookie receiving options. It's just there's going to be a natural learning curve with all of this going on. So without Devonte Adams, these two guys are going to need to be ultra productive to start the year, and then as the receivers that we've got going in there get comfortable and things start gelling there, it'll become a little more evenly dispersed. But it's clear that the running backs, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, they are going to be getting the ball this year, and man, how awesome is that for the Green Bay Packers that
Ground
they
and
have those
pound.
two guys back there, thunder and lightning, the true 1-2 punch, and they could turn into the best rushing attack the league has to offer. Who knows what Matt LaFleur has tucked up his sleeve for this season. He gets to kind of rework his offense.
He's learned his lessons from last year, I'm sure, and he will be pounding the ball into the end zone with AJ this year, more than last year more than anybody could imagine. I would imagine.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if every time we get on the goal line, it's not just handed off to A.J. Dillon.
Multiple times in a
4
row.
times in a row.
Yes.
I think he is impossible to stop.
Especially
4
with the
times in a
defense. You
row.
can give it up on the goal line if it's not an extremely important touchdown and just let him smash into him a bunch of times.
I believe that he is impossible to stop 4 times in a row. I believe that, truly.
Yes.
Maybe
Have
3
you seen
times
the
in
size
a row
of the
someone
guy?
can stop them, but not 4 times in a row. And yeah, I'm so pumped to see how he does in his 3rd year and see how Jonesy just continues his
illustrious Packers career. Yes.
Amazing career. Him and Derrick Henry have been the 2 best backs in the league over the last 4 seasons, and there's no arguing that. So, let's get into this Packers receiving core, shall we? Because in the post-Devonte and MVS era, it looks a little weird. As of right now, the Packers receiving room looks like Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, Sammy Watkins, who the Packers signed on a 1-year prove-it type deal coming into this season. I think that's a good signing. Sammy Watkins has had productive seasons in the past. He is a name, and with Aaron throwing him the ball and throwing him the ball in strategic spots and in spots where he could really thrive, I think Sammy Watkins does have the potential to kind of have a little bit of a resurgence here. If there's a place he could do it, it's in Green Bay, and I'm glad the Packers were able to get him for relatively for peanuts, basically. Get him for nothing, with a lot of incentives in there to really keep him motivated. On top of that, Amari Rodgers will be going into his 2nd year. Malik Taylor, Juwan Winfrey, and then, of course, we got the rookies, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Samori Toure. In an ideal world, the Packers will get immediate production out of Christian Watson, and he will be the number 1 receiver. Yes, he's from a small FCS school in North Dakota State, but last season he played 12 games. He had 43 catches, 801 yards. That's like 19 per reception, and 7 touchdowns. And quite frankly, he might have been the most physically gifted wide receiver in the entire draft. He is 6'4", 208 pounds, and that relative athletic score I was talking about earlier, his was a 9.96 out of 10.
God.
He nearly scored perfect. He had a 4.3 40-yard dash, a 38.5-inch vertical leap, and he is just as sick of an athlete a wide receiver could be coming out of college, and he has maybe as much upside as a wide receiver can have coming out of college. Yeah, he didn't do it at a school like Alabama, but he was undeniably phenomenal. He was spectacular at his small school.
Yes.
And he has all the intangibles and physical attributes to
become
really make some
Aaron's
noise
guy.
in the National Football League. And lucky for him, he has Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb in his ear teaching him how to play the professional game. And that couldn't be more of an advantage. I mean, clearly there's a few spots in the NFL where if you're a rookie wide receiver and you land there, you're primed for success and it's all in your hands. It's truly like maybe, 4 locations you could say that about in the NFL? 5 tops? Yeah. Green Bay is one of them, if not the number 1 place. So Christian Watson, in an ideal world, will arise quickly as the number 1 option, and the league will be on notice. Just as Justin Jefferson took over the league quickly, it'll be the same thing with Christian Watson. That's what we need to hope. And I apologize if you could hear any of the background noise.
I don't know if you've been able to tell, but for the past about 45 seconds, I've had extreme agita wondering what this insane outside. I have to go figure this out.
Sorry about that commotion there. When you're broadcasting live from the depths and shadows of Lambeau Field, there's bound to be a little commotion. And as we said before, there was that gentleman who got unfortunately arrested at the Manchester City game yesterday, and he has sought our help in getting him back to Chicago. So we just had to make sure that wasn't him. But long story short, yeah, Christian Watson needs to emerge as the guy, and hopefully he does. But with that in mind, I'm here to tell you that it is also extremely important to keep your eye on 4th-round pick Romeo Doubs out of Nevada. I mean, this guy, I believe he's truly going to pop this season as a contributor in this Packers offense. And I'm not talking just like a catch here, catch there. I'm talking second or third option type contributor in this offense this season. He is 6'2", 200 pounds, has a 4.5 40, and was truly one of the premier deep threats in all of college football. He recorded back-to-back seasons with 1,000 receiving yards. He had 13 games on his career with 100 or more receiving yards.
Damn.
4 games with 10 or more catches. 7 games with 2 or more touchdown catches. He averaged 105 yards per game in his senior season. He's just spectacular. Over these last 2 seasons, he ranked first out of all FBS receivers in deep passes, deep touchdown passes, mind you. He had 15 deep touchdown catches over his last 2 seasons, and he racked up almost 1,000 receiving yards on deep balls over his junior and senior year in college. If you watch any of his media thus far since arriving for OTAs and all that stuff, he seems to be confident but humble. He seems to be quiet and serious about his work, and he seems to have true self-belief and determination. I would say he has a fantastic head on his shoulders for his age, and I could not be happier with what we have seen and heard about so far from the new 87 in town. He's wearing 87, people.
It's a big thing.
The last 87 was nothing but a total just disgrace. He should have never been given the number. I'm not going to say his name. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
But Romeo Doubs is going to be out there wearing 87. And, I mean, hopefully I'm right about this. And just imagine Brian Gutekunst drafted not just the new number 1 option, but the new number 2 option as well. 2 legit young weapons.
It would completely erase everybody's comments about him not taking any receivers in the past couple drafts that
really
were
would.
of worth, yes.
It really would. And hearing Goot speak about it, he's saying that Romeo is the most polished receiver that he's seen, like, right away. Like, he is polished. He knows how to play the game the right way, apparently. So
We
it's
shall
crazy.
see soon.
And it's good news for this Packers receiving room. And it's exciting. It is exciting, okay? It's awesome, and it's going to suck not having Devonte Adams there. And it's going to be horrible, at least for the first couple times, to go into a Packers game without knowing that Devonte is going to have 10 for 100.
Yeah.
And we know it's all going to be okay because, hey, we have Devonte Adams. It's going to be a crazy game. Yeah, how's Devonte doing? No, it's exciting. We who's going to do what? How's Romeo going to play? How's Watson going to play? How's Lazard going to fill in his new advanced role? There's a lot of question marks surrounding this wide receiver room, but it's not a reason to be stressed out or pessimistic. No, it is optimism.
Yeah, there's a ton of talent flying around in there. Now it's about how are they going to use it, who's gonna be a stud.
A ton of talent, but also veteran leadership in a Randall Cobb. Having Randall Cobb back in town makes everything so much easier for these young guys as they transition into the professional life. Not to mention, Sammy Watkins is a veteran. He knows how the NFL is. And the possibility of adding another piece to this room, whether it be a Julio Jones or an Odell Beckham Jr., that option is still there. The door is not closed on that by any means. But just looking at this Packers wide receiver room and what they have available to them right now, I would call myself hopefully optimistic.
Oh, good.
That the offense is going to be just fine. Yeah, there's going to be growing pains. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be a frustrating game or two where things don't look great, but that's normal. Just think about the 2015 season, I believe it was, or 16 season when the Packers drafted Jamon Moore, MVS, and Equiminius St. Brown. Same thing happened there. There was growing pains. But it's going to be okay. Aaron Rodgers is manning
Yeah.
the ship. The running backs are phenomenal. There's just one more area of concern, and it's
And
the
more has
important
came
one.
out about this today as we speak. Not as we speak, but earlier on in the day. Bach wasn't on the PUP list. Now he is on the PUP list. A lot of people are freaking out.
Yeah,
Joe.
there's a lot of people scared about the offensive line, and I guess for good reason, because last season, all year long, from the time camp started, the offensive line was in a constant state of repair. They were plugging holes from the get-go. Clearly, they were without Bach the entire season, and he clearly might have came back a little too early or something.
We were curious why they mix and matched the positions with the line in the Niners game last
Yeah,
year. And
well, it's because Bach couldn't go, and
but why would they were running that all? It was just obviously something wasn't working the whole season that maybe was masked and then it was exposed. But now hopefully there's no worries like that.
well, yeah, Bach was out for the entire season. Josh Meyer missed the significant time due to injury, the rookie. It's going to be exciting to see how he looks in his second year as the starting center. Elton Jenkins missed the entire second half from week 11 on with that ACL. Billy went down a few times down the stretch there. And it was just a year filled with injuries inside that room. And it forced young guys like John Runyon and Royce Newman, Yash, to step up and start games all season long. And thanks to the phenomenal leadership of Coach Stenovich, they played well enough. And in fact, they played above expectation and gained invaluable experience coming into this season, which is only going to help them because this season it's a new ball game. It's a new competition. There are, as of right now, 4 spots up for grabs. If you think about it, with Bach being on the PUP list, Elton being on the PUP list, there's 4 spots up for grabs right now. And there are many new faces in town competing for them. Many new faces. This offseason, Goot went and drafted 3 more O-linemen. And one thing that, since the beginning of time, I have never knocked Goot on, and I always gave him his due respect, Brian Gutekunst knows how to identify an offensive lineman. That guy knows how to put together an O-line. And it started early in the 3rd round of this year's draft when he took Sean Ryan out of UCLA. 6'5", 321 pounds, as athletic as can be. Last season, as a true junior, a true 20-year-old, he started all 12 games for UCLA at left tackle, and he earned all first-team All-Pac-12 honors doing so. He was the best left tackle in the Pac-12 as a 20-year-old, which is spectacular. But the good news for the Packers is he's versatile enough to really line up wherever they need him to.
Which is what it seems as if that's how they like their linemen.
That is how they like their linemen. Brian Gutekunst likes versatile linemen. And, I mean, not everyone's going to be as versatile as Elton Jenkins. But Sean Ryan has the potential to be as versatile as Elton Jenkins. And the guy just looks awesome. He has this big, thick, wavy, Hawaiian-looking hair. He has a big, jolly smile. He just looks like a good time. And I truly believe he will be speaking of making 87 proud with Romeo Dubs, I think Sean Ryan is going to make 75 very proud in honor of Bron Laga. So I am pumped, and I think he's going to have an immediate impact, and I think it's going to be pretty early on in camp where it's obvious Raihan's a starter. I really do believe that. And in the very next round, round 4, Goot used his second pick of that round, right after taking Romeo Dubs, to take Zach Tom out of Wake Forest. And this guy, talk about physical specimens, he might be a physical specimen like no other for an offensive lineman. He is 6'4", 304 pounds, and his relative athletic score was 9.5 out of 10. He ran a 4.9 40 and a 4.4 shuttle. The guy is quick, big, strong, and most importantly, reliable, because in his career at Wake Forest, He played in over 3,000 snaps and allowed just 2 sacks.
It's a ridiculous stat.
So add that guy to the competition this year, and look out, Royce Newman and all these other guys, because Zach Tom is, I mean, he looks mean. Well, he doesn't look mean. He looks very friendly and nice, if I'm being totally honest. But he plays mean, and I think he's going to be making some noise come Wednesday. I'm serious about that. Zach Tom has some promise. And then in the 7th round, Goot went and got maybe the tallest man walking around in our society today, the largest man, Rasheed Walker. He's not the tallest, but he is a behemoth. 6'6", 313 pounds, all the size and the strength in the world, and really just a great, again, competition. He adds competition to that offensive line room. I mean, clearly the hope is to have Bach and Elton healthy and ready to play some football as soon as possible. Clearly that is the plan and the hope. But just like last year, there are question marks surrounding who the Packers are going to throw out there as their starting 5 come the season. But we have nothing to worry about. Steno is now the OC. He's the offensive coordinator. And since he's been in town, the Packers' offensive line has been the most well-coached in the league. And I could already hear now the endless questions that Coach LaFleur and Coach Stenovich and Coach Butkus, I just could hear all of the questions they're going to receive regarding what 5, who's going to be out there come week 1, who's going to be out there. And I'll tell you all the answer right this second. They'll have the best, who they believe to be the best 5 out there on the field playing together. And I believe they will. And it's not going to be an issue because they proved last season with significantly less firepower in their room that they could piece together quite a good offensive line. And now they have a bunch of young, strong, and physical guys in that room. And not to mention all pros like Bach and Elton just chomping at the bit to get back. So things are going to be good. Yes, there are questions surrounding this Packers offense coming into this season, but all we have to keep reminding ourselves is that Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback and Matt LaFleur is the head coach. The offense is in great hands, and all of this concern will just be forgotten about, like all the Packers drama is once the season begins and the W's start getting posted to that board. So no need to fear. Be excited because this Packers offense is going to look different. They're going to play different, and they're going to feel different. But they're going to be pretty damn good if all goes according to the grand plan. Now, let's get into the final phase of team football and the phase that was very important for the Packers to shore up coming into this season, and that being the special teams.
Ugh, I don't even like hearing it out loud.
Unfortunately, because we all did truly like the man, the first order of business was giving the special teams a facelift, and that meant bye-bye Mo Drayton. You tried. And they hired Rich Basakia.
Not much better of a hire, if
No
you ask me.
better of a hire than Rich Basakia. I'm so happy that name is Packers special teams coordinator, Rich Basakia. For those of you who don't know Rich Basakia, I'm sure y'all do at this point. Rich Basakia is quite simply put the man, okay? He has 20 years of NFL coaching experience, almost exclusively as a special teams coordinator, okay? This guy has done nothing but coach special teams for 20 straight years at the professional level. He was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers special teams coordinator for all of a decade and a half. He then went to San Diego for a second, and then he landed in Dallas for a short stint, and now he was with Oakland/Las Vegas for the last several seasons. Last year, after the humiliating John Gruden scandal that took place in the middle of the
Shame.
season and almost basically killed their season right where it stood, not to mention
Along
a
with
lot
the
of
other
the other
issues,
drama
yeah.
that went on, but we're focusing on the John Gruden scandal. Rich Basakia was tasked with manning the sinking ship, and he did so epically, I might add. He did so with all the love and passion that he possibly could for the men in that locker room. And he led the Raiders into the playoffs, and he won the hearts over of every single football fan in existence. Every football fan, he should have been the coach of the year, Rich Basakia. Let's just call it how it is. John Gruden was over there being a creep and an immoral human being, and just a total. It was just a circus with that guy Gruden running the show over there, and then it all came burning down around him, and they went, Richie, you gotta fix this for us, and that's exactly what he did. He gained that locker room, and the fact that they didn't just give him that head coaching job is despicable.
Pitiful.
But it's lucky for the Green Bay Packers because they were able to go get him to do what he always does, and that's coach special teams, but
Yes.
now with a newfound confidence and swagger, that of a wronged head coach. Seriously, because he brought that team to the playoffs. He was epic, and he's going to do the same thing to this Packers special teams unit. Apparently, since he's gotten here, he has already started infecting the building with his passion and energy. He has a new mantra that he's bringing into the special teams coaching that I guess is called "we fence" instead of defense. It's "we fence"
Okay,
mindset
coach.
that he's trying to instill in the guys. He's been implementing some unique special teams drills with like a tennis ball or something like that. It's safe to say that he is capable, and he seems to be extra willing to revamp this special
Let's
teams
go.
unit. And if any man could do it, answer the prayers of us cheeseheads who have just been looking for a stable special teams for a decade now, that would be Richie B, okay? Richie B. And on top of hiring Richie, the Packers have also made many changes to the special teams personnel that Richie will have afforded to him in town, which is a good start because Boho is out and he has been replaced by longtime Chicago Bears punter Pat O'Donnell.
Patty.
Pat O'Donnell has played 9 seasons with the Chicago Bears, and he really, in all honesty, I'm not even saying this to be funny, has probably been their most consistent and best player over the last 9 seasons. Yeah, they had Urlacher, they had Mack, they had guys that were their best players, but the greatest Bear of the last 9 years has to be Pat O'Donnell. This guy was infallible around there. He has proved time and time again that he could be consistent in the cold, and he and Mason seem to be good friends already. He was just at that soccer game with A.J. Dillon. He seems to be for the team, and boy, I'm sure he's thrilled to be on this side of that rivalry at this very
Absolutely.
moment. He probably had Adrian Amos telling him, oh, dude, just come on. What are you doing
What
over
are you
there?
waiting for?
I know you're a loyal guy, Pat, but come on. Come smell the foliage out front of Lambeau Field, the beautiful
Come lick
flowers.
the parking lot.
Yeah. Come look at how clean everything out here is. And truly, Pat O'Donnell, I think, is a fantastic signing. And hopefully, and not to mention, he's held the ball in the cold for the last 9 years as well, which was clearly something that J.K. and Boho struggled with from time to time. On top of that terrific signing at punter, the top 3 special teams contributors from last season in terms of snaps played, that being Oren Burks, Henry Black, and Isaac Yadam, are no longer our problem. Great news for the Packers. Those guys were nothing but weights holding them down. Isaac Yadam less than the other 2, and Oren Burks more than everyone else. He was a bust of a 3rd-round pick. But those 3 guys were the 3 main contributors on special teams last year, and all 3 of them were trash. They were not helping whatsoever. And it's a good thing, I believe, that they're no longer on the roster, and I wish them luck in their careers moving forward. Once a Packer, always a Packer. You know the saying. But the output that they displayed was, if anything, just frustrating. And
Frustrating
Dude's
is
done
the
a nice
least
job
of it.
at filling their holes with some potential replacements that I think have a little more promise than those guys have shown. And that started with going to Vegas and signing one of their free agents, that being Richie B's special teams extraordinaire, cornerback Keyshawn Nixon. He was a top special teamer for Richie B the last 3 seasons. And he just, again, adds a little bit of added depth there at the corner position. You can never have too many corners. And my guess would be the value he adds to special teams is way greater than Kevin King. And chances are if he had to get on the field, it would probably look like Kevin King.
Absolutely,
So,
yes.
it's a good signing from initial, just from the looks of it. From the looks of it, it's a good signing. And Richie B, I believe, handpicked him, which, hey, Richie B could do whatever he wants.
Absolutely. Yeah, he needs his guy. He said, hey, I need this guy. Okay, Rich. How do you want to get him here?
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
I need the 4th string corner on. He
I
is,
got
he is the greatest gunner I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes.
Send the PJ for the special team, or
Coach LaFleur. I have been coaching special teams for 20 straight years, and I've never come across a gunner quite like Keyshawn Nixon. He's the greatest gunner I've ever seen. Signed. Hopefully that's exactly how that went. And on top of that, there are a handful of rookies who could come in and just make an immediate impact on teams. 7th-round pick Tariq Carpenter is a big physical safety. He's 6'3", 230 pounds, played at Georgia Tech, and he played a lot of special teams throughout his time at Georgia Tech, specifically his first 2 years. And then the 2 rookie receivers, hopefully they could come in, get into a little competition, and both contribute in the return game. It has been far too long before there has been a competent return man out there for the Green Bay Packers. Yeah, I'm sure they'll be competing with Amari Rodgers and Malik Taylor, but can we all agree at this point we've seen what those 2 guys are like as return men, and they're both absolute liabilities back there?
yes.
And that the true competition is going to be coming between the 2 rookies that are in town and Kylan Hill, if that is something
If Kylan Hill wants to get back out there, that was a
back out there and do,
devastating
which I'm
injury.
sure he will. If he can, he will. And it'll be a 3-man competition, my guess is, between
He was
Kylan
a
Hill.
good
He
returner
was a
for
good
the time
returner.
being,
Yeah.
yes.
He was a good returner, and it was a shame to see that happen. It was a gnarly injury happening on the return. But he's going to be competing with Watson and Dubs. In college, Watson, he was a first-team All-American return man his junior year, and he returned 2 of his 10 career returns for a touchdown.
Wow.
And Romeo Dubs was a 4-year punt returner at Nevada and averaged 13 yards per return on his career. That's phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
And clearly, those 2 guys both have the ability to go do it, and
Yes.
I'm sure we'll see both of them doing it throughout the season at some point. And just that is great news for this special teams, because we cannot afford a untimely muff. But the point being, the point of all of what I just said, that long analysis of this past offseason and what we should be looking forward to come Wednesday at training camp, the point is we should be nothing but optimistic.
Oh, I'm extreme. You said hopefully optimistic before. I am extremely optimistic.
Yeah, I am too. I am extremely optimistic. The Packers are true Super Bowl contenders once again.
Yes, and they're not patching together a squad this year. They have plenty of depth. They have plenty of guys to try plenty of places. There's going to be a ton of competition. It's going to be exciting.
It's going to be exciting. And we are going to be here to bring you it all.
You'll be able to hear the whistles from just
will be
over
able-
yonder.
Exactly. We are going to be covering camp live from the premises of Clark Hinkey Field and the Ray Nitschke Field. We're going to be out there amongst the people, basking in all of the Green Bay Packer training camp
All the
festivities.
beauty that Green Bay has to
There'll be
offer.
daily uploads, so please stay tuned. If you enjoyed this long-form podcast, hey, subscribe, like it. Turn on the bell if you want. Anything helps. Any support that you want to give is much appreciated. Leave a comment if you've heard anything and had a thought and want to just have an open discourse about the Green Bay Packers, because that's what we're here to do. We are the Weekly Cheese. We're broadcasting live from the shadows of Lambeau Field all season long. So join us, please. We are here for you. We are created by Cheeseheads for the Cheeseheads. We are the Weekly Cheese. I hope you enjoyed this first long-form podcast episode. It's going to just build off of the last 2 seasons. All of the stuff's backlogged on the channel. So we're going to have the one long-form pod a week, just discussing the games and what happened in the games. We're going to have the pregame preview coming to you each and every weekend to get you ready for each week's matchup. We're going to have weekly vlogs of our time here in Green Bay, just to show you all what we're doing around here, how cool of a little community Ashwaubenon truly is, and just Green Bay as a whole. It's exciting. We are here. Packers season is here, and we just want to bring Cheeseheads out there, quality content that we believe you will all enjoy, that showcases not just our beloved Green Bay Packers, but the Green Bay area at large, because we've only been here a week now, but we just know that this is a special little community, and we could not be more pumped to be here. So again, subscribe, like, do all that stuff if you choose. You'll be seeing us pop up on your feeds, hopefully. We'll break into the algorithm eventually. That's the goal. But yeah, if you stumble upon it, join us on this ride. Feel free to comment. Hit us up on all of our socials. All of our socials will be linked in the description below. It's basically the Weekly Cheese on everything. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the first episode of the season as we get into a season's worth of daily uploads and content, and just Packer season is here. And so is the Weekly Cheese, live from the shadows of Lambeau Field. And we'll talk to you all, coming up this week, every day.
Every day.
You can't get it there. You'll be getting enough of us. You'll be sick of us soon. But thanks for tuning in, and feel really good about this season. Hopefully we'll be watching a Lombardi Trophy parade.
Hoisted right down this road.
Right down
here.
Oneida Street, right outside this window. But thanks, and as always, remember, the cheese stands alone.
Super Bowl!
Come on, Pack, green and gold, time to win that